Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Welcome, Judge Gorsuch, and welcome to your family and your friends. Congratulations on your nomination, and I look forward to the opportunity to question you. I believe my constitutional duty to advise the President on this nomination of the Supreme Court is among my most important responsibilities as a senator. A nominee confirmed to the Supreme Court shapes our law for decades. Justices decide cases that influence the lives of generations of Americans. This hearing is our opportunity to ask you, Judge Gorsuch, questions in front of the American people to better understand how you interpret the text of our Constitution and how you apply Supreme Court precedent. We'll explore how your approach to interpreting our Constitution would impact our lives in the future. I'm committed to ensuring the consideration of your nomination by this committee is thorough and fair, and I'm hopeful that as our hearing proceeds, it'll promote an important dialogue about the Constitution in the courts. Based on our meeting, Judge Gorsuch, I know that you too hope that this moment can serve as a shared civic experience. I am considering your nomination with an open mind, and I would ask that you be forthcoming in your responses to our questions. I'd like this hearing to be substantive and to reflect the best traditions of the Senate. However, I cannot let this moment, in commenting on the best traditions of the Senate, pass without expressing my deep regret that Chief Judge Merrick Garland was treated with profound and historic disrespect. The disrespect shown by Senate Republicans to Chief Judge Merrick Garland and to President Obama and to our institutions was unprecedented and deeply damaging. For nearly 300 days, longer than any other nominee, Chief Judge Garland's nomination to the Supreme Court sat without action. My Republican colleagues didn't afford him a hearing and would not give him a vote. I believe we have a responsibility to work to re-elevate our democratic institutions above these narrow partisan politics. I will support a process worthy of its important purpose to carefully evaluate a candidate for the highest court in the land. The American people are entitled to see you answer probing, thorough, and challenging questions about your views on a wide range of constitutional issues, because the breadth of the issues that come before the Supreme Court can't be overstated. Just in the last year, the Supreme Court considered cases involving executive power, affirmative action, intellectual property, partisan gerrymandering, racial bias in the courtroom, and reproductive rights. The seat you would fill, Judge Gorsuch, if elevated, was occupied by Justice Scalia, and you've been compared to him. While it may seem at times to many that the Supreme Court is engaged in abstract intellectual exercises about originalism or textualism or a living constitution, even a small subset of landmark decisions Justice Scalia took part in during his nearly 30 years on the court demonstrates otherwise. It's because of Supreme Court decisions that gay men can no longer be criminally prosecuted for engaging in consensual relationships, that loving same-sex couples can get married in every state in our union, that women cannot be denied attendance at one of the nation's premier military academies, and that women are entitled to access the full range of reproductive health care, that juveniles and intellectually disabled people can no longer be executed, and that millions of Americans who obtained health insurance under the ACA have been able to keep that care, at least for now. These cases impacted the lives of millions of real Americans, and Justice Scalia applied his understanding of the Constitution and dissented in every one of them. I'd like to use these hearings to explore your interpretation of the Constitution. I believe that our Constitution, which I view as our nation's secular scripture, includes guarantees of equality and privacy, hallmarks of our modern American society. I believe in an independent judiciary that safeguards our rule of law from unlawful intrusions of the most powerful, even the President of the United States. The legitimacy of our Supreme Court transcends the outcome of any one case, but that legitimacy rests on the unyielding responsibility of justices to put their personal political views aside to decide cases on their merits. Judge Gorsuch, your nomination has been championed by the ideologically driven Federalist Society and Heritage Foundation. Interest groups are already spending millions of dollars advocating for your confirmation. But as I've told you during our meetings, none of those facts will determine my vote on your nomination. I'm instead looking to you to demonstrate your ability to separate politics from constitutional interpretation. As my colleague from the state of Utah, Senator Hatch, once noted, judges that say what the law is promote liberty. Judges that say what they think the law should be undermine it. I've spent a good deal of time reviewing your record. I appreciate that you're an engaging and careful writer. I also have some serious questions based on your decisions. What stands out to me is your tendency to go beyond the issues that need to be resolved in the case before you. I've seen a pattern in which you've filed dissents from denials of rehearing, concurrences, or even concurrences to your own majority opinions, to explore broader issues than what's necessary, to revisit long-settled precedent, and to promote dramatic changes to the law. This pattern concerns me because these additional writings hint at an unwillingness to settle on a limited conclusion and forge a narrow consensus with your colleagues. I want to know that you would apply the Constitution and settle precedent to reach consensus and resolve narrowly the disputes before you. And I want to know that our treasured freedoms would be safe in your stewardship. Our Constitution, as you know, is designed to protect our diversity of views. It guarantees to all of us the freedom of expression, the right to privacy, the liberty to make our most personal life decisions, equal protection, and the ability to worship freely. Take the freedom of religion enshrined in the First Amendment, which says, in part, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. I believe we must balance our respect for the significance of faith and free exercise with concerns about impacts on others' liberty. As my colleagues know, I studied both law and divinity in school, and some of the most formative and meaningful experiences of my life have been guided by my Christian faith. The command to care for the most vulnerable among us inspires my work and service as a senator, and I value opportunities to share with my colleagues in prayer. Throughout our nation's history, religion has inspired countless acts of charity, kindness, and good works. But when I think about the founders' wisdom to protect both church and state by ensuring their separation, I'm in awe. Our United States were founded by people who came here for many reasons, seeking opportunity, freedom from oppression, and hoping, in many cases, to be free to practice their faith. From pilgrims to Mormons, from the Amish to Jehovah's Witnesses, America, from its founding to today, has been home to many faiths from many parts of the world, and part of our founders' genius was to abandon the European practice of having a state religion supported by state taxes. Now today, across the U.S., churches and mosques, synagogues and temples find their own way, recruit and raise up their own believers and funds free from state interference and unsustained by state support. The Supreme Court over decades has sought to strike and preserve a careful balance between the free exercise rights of religious minorities and the power of legislatures to compel compliance with neutral laws. Recently, the court has decided several landmark and controversial cases. In the Hobby Lobby case, where the free religious exercise rights of a few were held to permit the infringement on personal liberty of many. And in another important line of cases in which substantive due process rights have been held to guarantee a right to privacy and self-determination, even when long-standing practices and religiously motivated statutes are challenged as a result. I look forward to exploring these decisions with you. Religious freedom must be freedom not to have our values and practices pushed into the public square. While other nations are besieged by sectarian wars, inclusion of all faiths and all people have been guiding lights in the success of our democracy. However, at other times in our history, sincerely held religious beliefs have been invoked to deny millions of Americans full equality under the law, in defense of laws prohibiting interracial marriage or LGBT relationships or reproductive rights. We live today in tumultuous times, as you know, Judge. The Supreme Court's likely to hear many important cases in the years to come. It'll be important that we understand your values and framework for interpreting the Constitution on areas as important as executive power, national security, the independence of the judiciary, deference to agencies, and personal liberty. There are disturbing developments that I see in our modern environment as affronts to religious freedom and personal liberty. President Trump campaigned on putting in place a Muslim ban and has signed unlawful and discriminatory executive orders to deliver on that promise. The new administration's Justice Department has withdrawn guidance supporting protections for transgendered individuals. And the Attorney General testified under oath at his confirmation hearing before us that secular attorneys may not have the same claim to understanding the truth as religious ones. Our next Supreme Court justice will play a pivotal role in sustaining and defending our rights during this critical time for our country and in the years to come. America needs a Supreme Court justice who will protect the Constitution, not one who will countenance the faith or fear of some as a justification for infringing the liberty of many. It's against that backdrop, Judge, that I will be seeking to understand your commitment to the rule of law the guarantees of the First Amendment, and individual liberty. I look forward to your testimony. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Coons. Now I go